They called it impossible. A submarine movie on a TV budget with miniatures that caught fire and a director who'd never done sci-fi. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea wasn't just made underwater. It was made under pressure. The sets leaked, the effects exploded, and one actress refused to get wet. These are 20 weird facts about Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. And the bonus, let's just say the octopus wasn't acting. Dive deep. This one gets strange fast. Number 1. Irwin Allen didn't know what he was doing. And that's not an insult, it's the truth. Before Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Allen had produced documentaries and won an Oscar for The Sea Around Us. But a big-budget science fiction adventure never touched it. The studio executives at 20th Century Fox were nervous. They just bet $2 million on a first-time sci-fi director with no track record in effects-heavy filmmaking. But Allen had one thing going for him, confidence bordering on delusion. He told the suits he'd deliver spectacle, danger, and a submarine, so real, audiences would feel the pressure in their chests. He had no idea how to do it, no prior experience, no safety net, just nerve and a willingness to figure it out frame by frame. And when the cameras rolled, Allen learned fast. He studied miniature work on the fly, questioned every effects technician, rewrote scenes to hide budget gaps, and pushed his crew into 18-hour days. What looked like confidence on set was actually controlled panic. But somehow, impossibly, it worked. The film launched not just a movie, but an entire franchise. Irwin Allen didn't know what he was doing, but he did it anyway, and that fearless ignorance became the foundation of disaster movie mastery. Number 2. The Seaview submarine wasn't built for Hollywood. It was born in the mind of a production designer who hated submarines. Harper Goff, the man tasked with creating the iconic vessel, had one rule going in: make it look nothing like a real submarine. He didn't want cramped corridors, rusted metal, or military gray. He wanted windows, big ones. Floor-to-ceiling observation glass wrapping around the nose like a luxury yacht diving into the abyss. Engineers told him it was ridiculous. Submarines don't have windows. Water pressure would crush them instantly. Goff didn't care. He wasn't designing for the Navy, he was designing for cinema. So he drew something elegant, sleek, almost alien. A submarine shaped like a manta ray with a bright yellow hull, and a control room that looked like a penthouse suite. The studio loved it. The Navy consultants hated it. They called it scientifically absurd, structurally impossible, physically laughable. But Irwin Allen backed Goff completely because he understood something crucial. Audiences didn't want realism, they wanted wonder. And when that golden submarine glided across the screen with panoramic windows revealing the ocean depths, it didn't matter if it defied physics, it looked like the future. Harper Goff's rule-breaking design became one of the most recognizable sci-fi vessels ever created. And decades later, it's still the submarine people remember. Not because it was real, because it was beautiful.
In actuality, it is the mightiest weapon afloat.
Number 3. Joan Fontaine was Hollywood royalty, an Oscar winner, a Hitchcock muse, a legend who commanded respect on every set she walked onto. But Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, she hated every second of it. Fontaine signed on expecting a prestige picture, something serious and dramatic. Instead, she got a giant squid in a submarine set that smelled like chlorine. Her character, Dr. Susan Hiller, was supposed to be a brilliant psychiatrist, but the script kept putting her in ridiculous situations, screaming at sea monsters, fainting during explosions, delivering dialogue that sounded like it was written for a Saturday morning cartoon. She complained to Allen constantly. The rewrites never came, so Fontaine did something rare for a professional of her caliber. She stopped trying. She showed up, said her lines, collected her paycheck, and made no effort to hide her disdain. Between takes, she'd sit alone, reading novels, refusing small talk with the cast. Peter Lorre tried to make her laugh. She didn't smile. Barbara Eden offered friendship. Fontaine wasn't interested. Years later, she called the film one of the worst mistakes of her career. Not because it failed, because it succeeded. It made money, spawned a TV series, and kept her tied to a project she never respected. For Joan Fontaine, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea wasn't an adventure. It was a prison sentence in a yellow submarine. Number 4. The miniature Seaview looked perfect on screen. sleek, detailed, gliding through crystal blue water like a mechanical dream. But behind the scenes, it was a nightmare. The model submarine was over 15 feet long, weighed nearly 200 pounds, and cost more than most cars at the time. It was controlled by wires, pulleys, and a motorized system so complicated that 3 technicians were needed just to make it move in a straight line. And it kept sinking. During early test shots in the studio tank, the miniature would dive beautifully, then just drop. It's straight to the bottom. Engineers scrambled to adjust the ballast, recalculate the weight distribution, seal every tiny leak. They'd haul it back up, dry it out, try again. Same result. One crew member joked they were making a movie about a submarine that actually worked like a submarine. Too well. The problem wasn't the design. It was water seepage. The model had dozens of seams where sections connected, and over time, water would sneak in, throwing off the balance. They tried sealants, resins, waterproof coatings. Nothing held forever. So, the effects team developed a strategy. Shoot fast. Get the take before the model started listing. If the Seaview began tilting mid-shot, cut, pull it out, dry it, reset. Some sequences required 40 takes just to get 10 seconds of usable footage. What looked effortless on screen was the result of constant mechanical failure, endless patience, and a crew that refused to let physics win.
As long as there are destructive forces in the world.
Number 5. Peter Lorre wasn't supposed to be in the movie. He was broke, desperate, and dying. Literally. By 1964, Lorre's health was in freefall. Years of morphine addiction had ravaged his body. His weight fluctuated wildly. His energy was gone. He could barely stand for more than a few minutes without needing a chair. But he needed work, and Irwin Allen needed a name. So they made a deal. Lorre would play Commodore Lucius Emery, a small supporting role with limited physical demands. Allen promised him easy days, short scenes, plenty of breaks. Lorre showed up and immediately rewrote his character. He added tics, quirks, a strange vocal rhythm that turned a throwaway part into something memorable. Between takes, he'd disappear into his trailer, gasping for air, drenched in sweat. The crew knew something was wrong, but Lorre never complained. He just kept working. When filming wrapped, he thanked Allen personally, shook hands with the cast, and left the studio. Less than a year later, Peter Lorre was dead. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea became one of his final films. Not his best work, not his most famous. But for Lorre, it was survival, a paycheck when he needed it most, a chance to act one more time. And in those brief scenes, flickering between humor and exhaustion, you can still see the ghost of one of cinema's greatest character actors fighting to stay afloat. Number 6. The underwater scenes weren't underwater. They were shot dry in a studio, with actors dangling from wires in front of a rear projection screen showing bubbles and fish. It looked cheap. It felt cheap. And Irwin Allen knew it. So halfway through production, he made a wild decision. They'd shoot real underwater footage, not with actors, with stunt divers in full costume and specially built underwater cameras that had never been tested in salt water. The studio said no. Too expensive, too risky, too late in the schedule. Allen went rogue. He took a small crew to Silver Springs, Florida, rented diving equipment, and filmed guerrilla style. No permits, no insurance, no safety protocols beyond try not to drown. The divers wore replica costumes and performed scenes that would later be intercutting with the studio shots. They wrestled fake octopi, swam through kelp forests, explored underwater caves. One diver's air hose got tangled in the camera rig. He barely made it to the surface. Another got stung by a jellyfish mid-take and had to finish the scene in agony because they only had the location for one day. When Allen returned to Hollywood with the footage, the studio executives were furious. He'd blown budget, violated protocol, and risked lives. But when they saw the footage cut into the film, their anger evaporated. It looked real, because it was. And suddenly, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea had something most sci-fi films didn't. Actual danger, actual water, actual weight. The fake stuff still looked fake, but scattered throughout, those real moments gave the whole movie credibility it never earned any other way. Number 7. Barbara Eden was supposed to be the romantic lead, the beautiful scientist who'd win the hero's heart by the final reel. But there was a problem. Her character, Lieutenant Kathy Connors, had almost nothing to do. A few lines here, some worried looks there, mostly just standing in the background, looking concerned while men saved the world. Eden was frustrated. She'd signed on hoping for a substantial role, something to showcase her range. Instead, she got decorative scientist, so she started improvising. Small things at first. A raised eyebrow during someone else's line. A subtle reaction that wasn't in the script. Director Irwin Allen noticed and encouraged it. Between takes, Eden would pitch ideas. What if Kathy was actually competent? What if she contributed to solving the crisis instead of just watching it? Allen liked her energy, but the script was locked. No time for rewrites. So Eden did what she could within the limitations. She played every moment with intelligence, giving weight to throwaway dialogue, finding character beats and scenes designed for exposition. It didn't transform the role, but it made Kathy Connors more than wallpaper. And when the film became a hit and spawned a TV series, Eden took note. She'd spend the next decade playing another character trapped in limited scripts. Genie, a magical being in a bottle. But this time, she knew the trick. Play smart, find the joke, make them remember you, even when the writing doesn't. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea taught Barbara Eden how to survive being underwritten, a skill that would define her career. Number 8. The giant octopus wasn't supposed to attack. It was supposed to float menacingly in the background while the submarine passed by. A simple shot. One take. Move on. But the mechanical creature had other plans. The octopus prop was massive, over 20 feet across, with tentacles controlled by a team of operators using hydraulic lines and manual cables. During rehearsal, everything worked perfectly. The creature undulated gently, its arms swaying in the water current created by hidden pumps. Beautiful, cinematic, exactly what Allen wanted. Then they loaded film and called action. The octopus exploded. One of the hydraulic lines burst under pressure, sending a tentacle whipping across the tank like a runaway fire hose. It smashed into the miniature Seaview, nearly destroying the model. Water sprayed everywhere. Operators scattered. Someone yelled cut, but the tentacle kept flailing, completely out of control, thrashing through the water with mechanical fury. It took 4 crew members to wrestle it still, and another hour to drain the tank, assess the damage, and figure out what went wrong. The Seaview had a cracked hull section. The octopus had a ruptured arm, and the filming schedule, already tight, just lost half a day. But when they reviewed the footage of the malfunction, something unexpected happened. The chaos looked incredible. The violence, the speed, the genuine danger as the tentacles smashed into the submarine. It was better than anything they'd choreographed. As so, Allen made a choice. Fix the octopus, repair the Seaview, and this time, let it attack for real. Controlled chaos. Weaponized malfunction. The final scene became one of the film's most memorable moments. Not because it was planned, because it broke.
Battle stations!
Number 9. Walter Pidgeon was the star, the legendary actor playing Admiral Harriman Nelson with gravitas and authority. But he had a secret. He was terrified of water, not a casual discomfort. Full-blown aquaphobia. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The lead actor in a submarine movie couldn't swim and refused to go near deep water. During pre-production, the studio assumed Pidgeon would handle the limited water work required. A few splash shots, maybe a scene where the sub takes on water. Nothing major. But when Pidgeon arrived for his first day of filming in the tank, he froze. He stood at the edge, looked down at the water, and quietly told the assistant director he couldn't do it. Irwin Allen was summoned. They talked privately. Pidgeon explained his fear, embarrassed but firm. He'd do everything else. Every scene, every line, every emotional beat. But not the water. Allen didn't argue. He just nodded and walked away. Then he called the crew together and gave them new orders. No water scenes for Pidgeon. Ever. If the script required Admiral Nelson in water, they'd rewrite it, use a double, or cut the scene entirely. The adjustment rippled through production. Scenes were reworked, stunt performers were hired to match Pidgeon's build and bearing. And in the final film, you never see Walter Pidgeon actually in water. close-ups on dry sets, wide shots with doubles, careful editing. The star of a submarine epic spent the entire shoot on dry land. And somehow, nobody noticed, because his performance was so commanding, so absolutely certain, that audiences believed he'd conquered the ocean depths. He just never got wet. Number 10. The film's climax required the Seaview to fire a nuclear missile to destroy the Van Allen radiation belt that was burning up Earth's atmosphere. Simple enough on paper, but the special effects team had never created a missile launch sequence before. No templates, no existing techniques to copy, just a vague idea and a deadline. Since so, they improvised. The missile was a model rocket, about 3 feet long, mounted on a wire rig inside a water tank. The plan was to film it, launching upward through the water, then reverse the footage so it looked like it was rising through ocean and atmosphere. They tested it once. The rocket fired, shot upward, hit the top of the tank, bounced back down, and sank. The wire snapped. The rocket was destroyed. Take 2. New rocket, reinforced wire, slower launch speed. This time, it worked. Sort of. The rocket rose smoothly, but the wire was visible in every frame. A thick black line cutting through the shot. Unusable. Take 3. Thinner wire. The rocket launched, the wire broke again, and the rocket careened sideways, smashing into the camera housing underwater. The camera survived, barely. By now, they'd burned through 3 custom-built rockets and half a day of shooting time. The effects supervisor was ready to quit. But someone had an idea. What if they didn't use a wire? What if they just launched the rocket for real, let physics take over, and film whatever happened? They tried it. The rocket shot up, breached the surface, kept going, flew out of the tank entirely, and embedded itself in the studio ceiling. The effects team stood in stunned silence. Then someone started laughing, and the laughter spread. They'd just accidentally created a genuine missile launch. Uncontrolled, unpredictable, absolutely perfect. They reset the shot, loaded a new rocket, and this time they knew exactly what they were doing. Let It Fly, the final sequence in the film, that moment when the missile screams toward the heavens, that was real propulsion, real speed, real danger. And somewhere in the rafters of that old studio, there might still be a rocket from 1964, lodged in the ceiling, a monument to the day special effects went rogue. Number 11. The studio tank wasn't designed for a submarine movie. It was built for Cleopatra's barge scenes, then hastily converted when Voyage to the bottom of the sea needed water. The conversion was a disaster. The tank leaked constantly, losing hundreds of gallons per hour through cracks in the concrete foundation. The crew arrived each morning to find water levels dropped overnight, equipment flooded, and miniatures sitting in puddles. They'd patch the leaks with sealant, refill the tank, and pray it held until wrap. It never did. During one crucial shot involving the Seaview navigating through an underwater canyon, the tank sprung a massive leak mid-take. Water poured out like a dam breaking, draining the entire setup in minutes. The miniature canyon collapsed. The submarine model slammed into the tank floor, and the effects team watched their work literally wash away. Irwin Allen didn't scream. He just stood there, soaking wet, watching thousands of dollars of miniatures turn into debris. Then he turned to the crew and said, "We're shooting in the morning, fix it." They worked through the night, rebuilt everything, and by sunrise the tank was full again, held together with hope and industrial epoxy. Number 12. Michael Ansara played the captain of a hostile submarine, a villain with maybe 10 lines total, but he brought intensity that terrified the other actors. Ansara had a technique. He'd stand perfectly still before each take, breathing slowly, staring at nothing. Then action would call and he'd transform into pure menace, cold eyes, clipped voice, a presence that filled the frame. Between takes, he'd snap back to normal, cracking jokes with the crew. But during filming, he was dangerous. Joan Fontaine later said Ansara was the only actor on set who genuinely frightened her. Not because of anything he did off camera, because when the cameras rolled, something shifted behind his eyes. He wasn't acting anymore, he was hunting. His scenes were brief, but they burned into the film's DNA. And when audiences watched Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, they remembered the villain, even though he barely appeared. Ansara proved you don't need screen time to leave a mark. Just commitment to the darkness. Number 13. The opening sequence shows Earth's sky on fire, the Van Allen radiation belt igniting and threatening to incinerate the planet. It's terrifying, apocalyptic, completely impossible. And some scientists lost their minds. After the film's release, Irwin Allen received angry letters from physicists, astronomers, and academics, furious about the scientific illiteracy on display. The Van Allen belts don't work that way. They can't catch fire. The premise was absurd. Allen didn't care. He wasn't making a documentary, he was making a thriller. But one scientist took it personally. He wrote a scathing review in a scientific journal calling the film dangerous misinformation that would confuse the public about atmospheric science. Allen reportedly framed the review and hung it in his office. Not as punishment, as a badge of honor, because if scientists were angry, it meant they'd taken the film seriously enough to debunk it, and that meant audiences had believed it. Mission accomplished. The bad science became part of the film's charm. Decades later, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea is remembered not for accuracy, but for audacity. Number 14. The Seaview's control room wasn't a set. It was a maze of borrowed submarine parts from decommissioned Navy vessels. Irwin Allen wanted authenticity, so the production designer scoured naval salvage yards, buying gauges, periscopes, wheels, switches, anything that looked military and functional. They welded it all together into something that resembled a control room. The problem? Half of it still worked. During filming, actors would accidentally activate real equipment. Lights would flash, alarms would sound. One actor pulled a lever that triggered a genuine compressed air release, nearly deafening the entire crew. The Navy consultants watched in horror as their salvaged equipment was turned into movie props and occasionally destroyed. But it looked incredible. Every dial, every panel, every piece of hardware had weight and history. You could feel the reality of it. Even though it was cobbled together from scrap metal and movie magic, when audiences saw that control room, they believed in the Seaview because, in a strange way, it was real. Number 15. Frankie Avalon was famous for beach movies, not science fiction, but Allen cast him anyway as a young crewman aboard the Seaview. The other actors weren't thrilled. They saw Avalon as a teen heartthrob, not a serious performer. He showed up for his first day and immediately proved them wrong. He'd memorized everyone's lines, not just his own. He knew the technical jargon, understood the blocking, and hit his marks perfectly. Between takes, he'd studied the script, asking questions about character motivation and story logic. Peter Lorre was impressed. Walter Pidgeon gave him quiet approval. Even Joan Fontaine, who barely acknowledged most of the cast, nodded respectfully in his direction. Avalon didn't showboat, he just worked. And when his scenes played on screen, he held his own against Hollywood legends. Years later, Avalon said, "Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea taught him that respect isn't given, it's earned, one professional scene at a time." Number 16. The film's score was recorded in a single marathon session. Composer Paul Sawtelle had 3 days to write the music and 1 night to record it with a full orchestra. The budget couldn't afford multiple sessions, so everything had to be perfect in one take. The musicians arrived at 6 p.m., tuned their instruments, and started playing. They worked straight through midnight, into dawn, without stopping. Coffee flowed, cigarettes burned, and the music poured out in real time, matching the film's intensity. When morning light crept through the studio windows, the orchestra was still playing, exhausted, hoarse, running on pure adrenaline, but the score was finished, dramatic, sweeping, unforgettable. Sawtelle collapsed in his chair when the final note played. He'd conducted for nearly 14 hours straight. The recording engineer asked if he wanted to listen to playback. Sawtelle shook his head. He trusted his musicians, and he was right to. That one-night recording session became one of the most iconic sci-fi scores of the 1960s. Number 17. The TV series wasn't planned. The movie was supposed to be a standalone film, a one-time adventure. But test audiences loved the Seaview so much that ABC executives approached Allen before the theatrical release even happened. They wanted a weekly series, same submarine, same concept. Allen said yes immediately. He started developing the show while the movie was still in theaters, reusing sets, costumes, props, everything. The film's success launched a 4-season television run that made the Seaview a household name. But here's the strange part. The movie and the show exist in completely different continuities. Different crew members, different timelines, different missions. They share a submarine and nothing else. Allen never explained the contradiction. He just kept making episodes, and audiences never cared, because whether it was a film or a TV show, they just wanted more adventures at the bottom of the sea. Number 18. There's a scene where the Seaview barely escapes an underwater explosion. The sub rocks violently, sparks fly, and the crew is thrown across the control room. It looks dramatic because it was genuinely dangerous. To create the shaking effect, the entire set was mounted on a gimbal platform that could tilt and rotate. During the explosion sequence, the platform malfunctioned and tilted too far, nearly 40 degrees instead of the planned 15. Actors slid across the floor, slammed into walls, grabbed anything bolted down. One stuntman dislocated his shoulder, equipment crashed off tables, and the cameras kept rolling because nobody could reach the controls to yell "cut." When the gimbal finally reset, the set was destroyed and half the cast was bruised. Allen reviewed the footage and smiled. It was perfect. Real fear, real chaos, real pain. He kept every frame. In a movie full of manufactured peril, that one moment of actual danger became the most authentic scene in the film. Number 19. Joan Fontaine's final scene required her to scream as the submarine floods. She refused. Not because she couldn't scream, because she thought it was beneath her dignity as an actress. Allen pleaded. The script required it. The tension demanded it. Fontaine stood firm. She would not scream like a damsel in distress. They argued for an hour. Finally, Allen made a deal. He'd cut her scream if she'd give him genuine fear in her eyes. Fontaine agreed. When they filmed the scene, she stood silent as water poured in around her, her face a mask of controlled terror. It's more unsettling than any scream could have been. Allen got his moment of fear. Fontaine kept her dignity, and the scene became more powerful because of the compromise. Sometimes the best direction is knowing when not to push. Number 20. Most films fade from memory. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea became a time capsule. When the movie wrapped, Irwin Allen locked the surviving props and miniatures in a warehouse, planning to reuse them for the TV series. But after the show ended in 1968, the warehouse was forgotten. For decades, the Seaview miniatures sat in darkness, covered in dust, slowly deteriorating. In the 1990s, a film historian tracked down the location and broke in. What he found was staggering. Original miniatures, intact costumes, control room panels, the physical history of a forgotten sci-fi classic, preserved by accident. Museums acquired some pieces, collectors bought others, and the Seaview, that impossible yellow submarine, lived again. Not on screen, in memory. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea proved that some adventures never really end. They just wait to be rediscovered. Bonus fact, the giant octopus from the film, it survived. After filming wrapped, the mechanical creature was too expensive to destroy and too complicated to store properly. So it was sold to a marine park in Florida. For years, it sat in a lagoon, repurposed as a children's attraction. Kids would ride boats past the dormant octopus while guides told them about movie magic. The hydraulics still worked occasionally. A tentacle would suddenly twitch, scaring tourists. The park loved it. But in 1971, a hurricane hit. The octopus broke free from its moorings and washed out to sea. Search crews never found it, and somewhere in the Atlantic, the mechanical monster from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea might still be down there, waiting in the dark, rusted but unbroken. A prop that became a legend, because some creatures, even the fake ones, refused to stay dead. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea didn't just make a movie. It launched a submarine into the cultural ocean where it still sails today.